You ready to roll?
Yep, let's do it.
What is up? This is Joe Adams, and welcome to the Relentless Pursuit Podcast. What we do on this podcast is bring in guests from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life, to share their journey and all the steps along the way that led them to where they're at today. We're here to make an impact, and that is what we do. So if that is for you, like, subscribe, share, all those wonderful things. If that is not for you, I don't know what your problem is, but you need to jump on board. Sorry, I forget to breathe sometimes.
Just like it.
But without further ado, I would love to introduce today's guest, my friend, Ben Monette.
Yeah.
Yeah. Monette, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I kept wanting to say Monet.
I wish it was Monet, and I got the royalties.
I was like, are you French? Or
is that I am.
French?
When we went over and migrated to the States, we just added a bunch of letters. So it was good.
Hey, it shifts sometimes.
Yeah.
I think mine was like, when they came to the States, it was Adamsko, and they made it Adams. And I'm like,
not easy to pronounce.
The old one's really cool, though. I'm like, stick with that. Anyways, dude, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a blessing to be on here.
Hell yeah, dude. It's a blessing to have you, man. I'm honored. For those of you out there, real quick backstory. So Ben and I met at the Nashville Fit, what would you call it? Summit. Yeah. Fitness professional summit. I don't really got the title, but it was a great time, and we got to interact. Very small group of attendees, but awesome speakers. And Ben and I talked for a moment, and I was like, yeah, dude, we got to connect for sure. Yeah. So, and here you are, man.
Here I am. It's good.
I'm ready to hear your story, what you do, and where you're going with it, man. I know you got a powerful one. I've been talking about myself for the past 30 minutes. Yeah. Now you know more about me. Now it's your turn. So that's why I didn't ask too many questions. Yeah. This is your moment to shine, bro.
Oh, man. So let's begin at the beginning.
Well,
right? Or what do you want me to begin at?
Just tell everybody what you do now.
Okay.
Like what you got going on in your life, and then we'll take it back.
Nice. Okay. There. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm medically retiring from the military after 16 and a half years. Spent 15 of those years as a Green Beret. And as I transitioned out, I knew that there was a space where mental health was vastly important to me, but also vastly important to many other individuals. Mm-hmm. So I have the opportunity to work for Treehouse Recovery, which is a substance abuse and a mental health facility. There's facilities across the country. And we focus on veterans, but not strictly veterans. But it's a phenomenal facility. I had the opportunity to attend as a client, and it drastically changed my life.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to provide that for others.
Nice, man.
And then that kind of spawned into me wanting to do more. How can I give back? How can I help not only the veteran population, but also individuals that are struggling?
Nice, man.
And so with my individual or friend that I worked with at 5th Special Forces Group, Nick Lavery, he gave me an opportunity to be a subject matter expert on his virtual community website. It's called The Forge. So I'm the mental health and recovery subject matter expert. So I teach, I mentor, I help individuals who are struggling with addiction, and we'll go into how I define addiction later. But that kind of sparked some speaking engagements, some podcasts, and I was like, man, this is great. I love doing this. I love being vulnerable. I love encouraging others to get help that they deserve.
Yeah.
And then lastly, that spawned, I keep just spawning more things to do to help. Resilience Recon, which is my own personal company that is a personal coach where, I understand the levels of high achievers. And again, anybody can be a high achiever, but most of the individuals are stuck. I really focus on the mental aspect.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten able to compartmentalize our professional life and our personal life.
Oh, yeah.
And there's so much bleed over, and we need to align both of them.
Without doubt.
And I've struggled with that in the past. So my struggles of what I've learned from, I employ helping others.
Yeah. So I love it, man.
Yeah.
See, we align on all these things too.
We do closely.
And I love that. And then you talked about the vulnerability, and of course the podcast and Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there that get on podcasts and they kind of fake it, right? But
Yeah.
like, the more you do it, people are going to recognize that. So I can already tell that you're very authentic and vulnerable. That's what's going to help you help people.
Yeah.
People don't realize the power in being that way is going to be what leads you to really impacting others.
Yeah, vulnerability breeds encouragement.
Yeah.
Right? And we all struggle differently, but similarly as well.
Hell yeah, man. Well, let's dive into it. So
Yeah.
take us back, man. Take us back to the young days of Ben. Where
The
you're
young
from.
days, yeah.
A little bit of childhood stuff, maybe some influences there, and what that was like, and we'll just roll with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. Kind of small town.
Is that where they're eating like birds and stuff? I don't know.
No.
I don't know. The news is I said something,
Yeah.
saw something about that.
I think it's close. When I heard that, I was like, oh.
Damn, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, I guess that's a thing now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. As a young kid, I gravitated towards sports. Was thrown into all the sports. I'm a horrible baseball player, so I quickly stopped playing baseball.
Same.
And I gravitated towards soccer, and that was really my thing and my focus. Growing up, loving family, they support me. My sister swam, so my one of my parents was taking her to lessons, and then I was going off to the soccer practice. So it was very busy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. So continued that, and that led me to receiving a Division I college soccer scholarship to Bowling Green State University up on the Ohio-Michigan border.
Okay.
And that is when my life began to change, right? That's when I began to only focus on what I could achieve.
Yeah.
Right. That was when I started having that low self-confidence, that struggle internally, that mental, barrier, and not feeling that I was good enough.
Was it maybe because, you were just focused solely on soccer?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I was gonna, school was secondary, athletics was primary, and if I was, my goal was to play soccer for the rest of my life.
You want to be David Beckham?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And junior year, I soon realized that I was not that was not the case. So I transferred down to the University of Dayton. When I graduated college, I went into sales. I was like, my dad was a salesman. I was like, that's my path. I guess this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And I hated it. It was not for me, right? And about 6 months into that, I just was like, what am I doing with my life? Am I going to be in Dayton, Ohio for the rest of my life? And I didn't want that. I wanted control over my destiny. I wanted to do something great and push myself to my limits to know how far I can go.
Yeah.
So one day I went to a Army recruiting station. I always knew about the Green Berets and special operations, and I left there with either a Green Beret recruit contract or a officer contract. And I went home and did some soul searching. I'm like, what do I want to do? These are two great options. What do I want to do? And I really sat down, and the next day went back to the recruiter station. I was like, hey, I want to try out to try to earn my Green Beret.
I want to take it back real quick.
Yeah.
You hit on something important though, that kind of like the pursuit of athletics, like that was all you had, and it's, I think athletics are important. I think, that activity and all the things involved with it is important. I want my daughter to do different stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think and not knocking your parents or any parents out there, but they put so much emphasis on you being great at that. But the most important part is like, who are you?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I always want to stress to my daughter as she grows, like, hey, no matter what, because that can be taken, that ability can be taken away tomorrow, right? But who are you? Because that's got to remain strong. And if that is taken away, you're good. You're just going to go a different route in life. But I think I don't know, I see that quite often. So many people devote so much time and attention of themselves into that one singular thing that they forget all else. It's kind of like focusing on the business all out, right? And you forget who you are, but know thyself, right?
Exactly. Because if my focus was, athletics, and once that was the, junior year, once I knew that wasn't going to, amount to anything, who was I?
Yeah.
What was I doing, right? And that's the stage where I was like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Who is Ben?
Yeah.
Right? And that led me to that recruiting station.
Oh yeah.
So that was the, rough, short, quick, history of me leading into, enlisting into the military. And then fast forward in 2008, I went down to basic training, airborne school, and then went up to North Carolina for Special Forces assessment and selection.
Oh yeah.
And that was the time where that was difficult. That was tough.
How old are you, by the way?
I am 40 years old. Yeah. So I was older. I was an older recruit because I already had, college. And getting into it, I was more mature, so I could handle the mental stressors a little bit better than some younger individuals.
Yeah, because I graduated high school in 08, so you said
nice.
I was graduating right when you were going in.
I was going in, but it was tough. But I was always one thing that continued to allow me to succeed, and I continue to do to this day is no one can take time from you.
Yeah.
Right. You can't take time from me. You can take a lot of other things. And throughout my training, they have successfully taken a lot of things from me.
You want to talk about the little bit of the training a little bit?
Yeah. So the the physical aspect is tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
To become a Green Beret, you have to have the physical endurance, the physical ability to do whatever task they ask of you.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, it's the mental strength of never giving up, understanding what is in front of you and how are you going to accomplish that or achieve that.
Yeah.
And they hit hard on that, the mental aspect. And throughout the 1.5 year long training after I passed Special Forces and Assessment Selection, that's the marathon.
Yeah.
Right? And the 2 weeks that I went to selection was difficult because it was constantly day in and day out, very little sleep, very little food. But that marathon of training, you always had to be focused. You always had to be dialed in. And you were always constantly under the microscope.
Yeah.
And that wears on you, right? Always of second guessing, am I good enough? Did I make the right decision?
Of course.
So that mental fortitude, that mental strength that I was able to develop through that 1.5 year long training significantly helped me.
Yeah.
But also, it significantly hurt me. Right.
Yeah.
Because the brain is so powerful, and what we do with our decisions or choices matter. Right?
Yeah.
So fast forward, got to 5th Special Forces Group in 2011, and I was off to the races. Went to Ranger School in 2013. My goal was to do every hard course that the Army or the military had.
Yeah.
And that was my goal. I was like, if I can do that, then I can prove to myself. I was always searching for external, accolades, external things that I can do to prove to myself, because internally, I did not think that I was worth it.
Well, it's interesting you say that, and it's like on one side, you were talking about how that hurt you, like internally, right? Maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but also that way of thinking helps you excel, like on the battlefield, right? Like you're just doing what you need to do. Like, don't worry about it's not about your internal self. It's about performing that job,
that task,
and getting that shit done.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it's an interesting dynamic.
Yes.
It's like, hey, kill that self of you internally and just be a machine, essentially, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what I became, right? And so went to Ranger School, combat dive course, combat dive supervisor course. So all the courses that were very difficult. And like we were talking about earlier, I climbed that mountain. I looked at that mountain. I saw the next mountain, right? That peak was just a little bit higher than the peak I'm at now. So I was like, I want it there.
Yeah.
But I never gave myself a time to reflect on what I had to do to get to that first mountain, right? I never give myself the accolades, the self-accomplishment. I just was like, okay, this is the next step. What's next?
Always on the next peak.
Always on the next peak. And that hurt my mental strength, my mental health.
Yeah.
So throughout the 15 and a half, all those courses in schools, and I deployed 8 times to the Middle East. So anywhere from tactical combat operations to working as a liaison at the U.S. Embassy. So I had the tactical, I had the strategic experience, and I loved it. But all through those 15 years, the way I coped with life stress, the way I coped with my mental health, the way I compartmentalized myself, Ben, is I isolated and I, drank. I became that alcoholic. I became that person that it didn't matter what happened to me, whether or not it was negative or positive. My solution was to drink.
And it's weird because like people from the outside looking in, they see this Green Beret.
Yeah.
They're like, he's not an alcoholic. He can't be an alcoholic because look at how he performs. He's doing all this shit.
And
like,
that's how I was able to, I was in denial. I was able to convince myself that I didn't have a problem because look at all the things on the professional side that I had, that I was doing, right? I was excelling in all these aspects professionally, but personally, my personal life was in shambles. It was a disaster, right? My marriage, failed. I wasn't as good of a father as I should have been, right?
Okay.
And I'm changing that now. But those are the things that looking back, I'm like, wow, like I didn't focus on Ben. Like it was work and I couldn't handle my personal life. So how did I handle or how did I cope with that? Well, I drank to push everything down, deep down inside. And that was a thing for, like 15 years.
damn, man. When did you get married and have kids in the midst of this?
So 2014, I got married, and then 2012, marriage, and then 2016, 17, I got divorced. And every time I would return back home, that transition from an operator to a dad, to a husband, to a regular person, kept getting harder and harder and harder. And each time I just used the bottle to cope with that.
Yeah.
And all I did. And it's crazy to look back on how powerful our brains are and how I was able to be in denial that no, I don't have a problem. Because look, XYZ, I was doing these things.
Yeah.
Right? And it's tough. But however, that is what led me to being the person I am today. And I'm grateful for the failures that I've done, or that's happened to me, because I've learned from them and I've become a better individual, a better human, and I can relate to a lot of different people because of the experiences that I've been through.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And delivering that.
Exactly. But back to you, man.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a lot of things you'll talk about will spur some thoughts in mind, but I don't want to like bombard the podcast with it. So
Please
the off-camera stuff's great. So you're talking about, those experiences and the denial you were facing,
Yes.
but how all that experiences made you relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's an important thing I think to focus on. You talked about, struggling with your home life and all that. Do you want to touch on, was there anything significant? Like, I guess, I don't know if you could talk about it, but like being deployed, that was like just really tough for you to overcome as well. I mean, because, you got deployed 8 times. That's quite a few times overseas.
There's some things that I'll leave out, but the gist of it is every single day deployed, I had to be okay with it being potentially the last day, right? Like, that was something that, I've been through things. I've lost some friends, but regardless of those situations, of those isolated events, throughout the entire deployment, you had to be okay with, if this is the last day, then that's the last day, right? So you got numb to it.
That's interesting.
And you accepted it. But that transition back home, when you are still in that mindset, right? That's not a healthy mindset to be when you're back home.
You always hear the saying like, live today like it's your last day.
Yeah.
And normal people, you hear that message preached a lot. And so like you get the concept, but then when you're really faced with the reality of like, no, like today, literally, like most of us are going to go about life and shit happens. I know, but you were in a situation where like you had to force yourself to really think that. And it's interesting the difference, because that was the reality every day for you.
Yeah, it was. But more importantly is and this is the thing that I did not do well, right? I failed at this, and I'm learning this now. But what did I do? How could I, help that transition become smoother? How could I not compartmentalize, not bury it down? Because we all know what happens when we bury our feelings and resentments and animosities down inside. But what did I do differently? How can I better myself in that transition, or how can I help others better themselves coming back home and inserting into being a family man? It's difficult.
But you didn't fail at it because you're learning from it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a lesson. That's a win in itself.
Oh yeah, I'm a big component. Like I love failure.
Yeah.
Right. I view failure as fail once, fail again, fail better. There's one no fail thing that I can never do for the rest of my life, and that is going back to the bottle. I cannot do that.
Yeah.
Everything else I can fail at.
Yeah.
And I've accepted that. And once I really truly accepted the fact of I can make mistakes, I can do this wrong, I can mess up on this podcast, I can do anything, and I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to learn from it.
They're all lessons.
All lessons.
Yeah.
100%. But that's that no failure thing for me. And I'm okay with that. And I love that about me now, is I'm able to fail, I'm able to learn. And I've seen it mentally, right? For me mentally, I've seen it alleviate that cinder block on my shoulders of I have to perform, I have to be successful. What's the definition of success in my eyes? I didn't necessarily know because I was too busy looking at that extra mountain.
Yeah.
At that next mountain, I didn't know that I just was successful. I just did something that very few individuals could do, but I didn't give myself that credit.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, okay, next. Right. So looking at that all, right, in 2019, 2020, I had an opportunity to go up to someplace up north to do some training. And this was an event that was going to be very mentally taxing, a little bit of physical taxing, but very mentally taxing. And I was still in my addiction, and I knew I could not be successful.
Yeah.
I knew I would just burn it to the ground, and I did not want to do that. This was something that was one of my goals for the longest times in the military. So I raised my hand. I said, hey, I have a problem. I need help before I go to this course. I will not be successful if I go to this course. I need help. And so what my command did was say, hey, there's a program in place. It's a facility. It's 30 days. It's a, in quotes, veteran, program for 30 days. Hospital setting, was not a veteran program. I did not do much work on the PTS, internal reflection, didn't have much counseling. It was just a place, an isolated, controlled environment that I did not drink at.
Yeah.
Right. So after that, I stayed sober for 18 months. My lack of knowledge thought that if I take out alcohol from my life is going to be better. Life is going to be great. Right?
Yeah.
Everything's going to be phenomenal. No more life stressors, nothing. Right. I was significantly wrong on that aspect. Taking out alcohol, which was my coping mechanism, which is an effective coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Drugs is an effective coping mechanism. Horrible decision, very dangerous, not the only one, but it does work, right? I don't condone it. There's so many different alternatives to that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say it doesn't work. So when I took that out of my equation, I did not handle life well.
Yeah.
I was stressed out. I got remarried. The marriage was toxic. It wasn't going well. I wasn't, assimilating to that home life. My job, I was kind of focused on my job, but then I was like, what am I doing? There's a lot of things that was exposed or brought to the surface that I was burying for the longest time. So that 18 months was very helpful for me to understand that, regardless of, me taking out alcohol, life's not going to slow down. There's still going to be hurdles in my road. And I need to learn how to, in a healthier way, handle those.
Yeah, there wasn't like steps implemented for you to grow from like eliminating that out of your life. Yeah, like things that gave you purpose to help you be better.
Yeah, and I didn't have the knowledge, right? The knowledge of why I was doing what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
We always, for the longest time, and I'm sure this is, a lot of, listeners can relate, is you wake up and you're like, man, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to drink. I don't want to do drugs. I don't want to gamble. I don't want to do anything. But you go back to doing it.
Yeah.
Why? Right? We're big. Our society now has data at our fingertips, right? With phones. So why was I doing that? So I didn't have that knowledge of what my brain was doing, what my brain was telling me, what my body was telling me, to continue to go back to alcohol, to cope with it in an unhealthy way. So 18 months goes by. It was a toxic marriage, ended up getting in a divorce. And during that time, I made a choice last June to relapse.
Yeah.
And I sat in a hotel room.
Last June, like
yeah.
Oh shit.
So
not long ago.
No, not long
You're
ago.
talking this year?
No, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, this year's flying by. June 2023. And for 7 days I relapsed. And those 7 days, it was the pain of a failed marriage. What could I have done better? It was the pain of I relapsed, right? I was angry at myself, and I didn't want to, on the 5th day, I actively tried to kill myself drinking. And that was in a dark, dark place. I did not want to do anything anymore. I didn't care about my life. I didn't care about the decisions. I didn't care about others, right? How it would impact others. And I made that decision. And leaving that hospital the following day, I was able to, I had the opportunity to be exposed to Treehouse recovery. And my behavioral health was like, hey, this is a program. Take a look at it. We can get you there in 3 days. I was like, okay. I knew I could not stop by myself. And that's something that I'm okay with to this day, but I know that I can't. So that led me to being on a plane, getting into Treehouse recovery, and that's when the healing began.
Yeah.
It's a 3-month program. So during that 3-month program, I learned the why factor of why I was continuing to drink, why I was utilizing unhealthy coping mechanisms for any life event, right? Positive or negative.
Yeah.
And that I also worked on a lot of PTS work.
What did you, as far as the why, like, what did you uncover through that?
Wow. It's all in our brain, man. Like the fact that the why I was doing that, I was searching that dopamine, right? I was constantly searching for the dopamine rush.
Yeah.
And understanding that, our brains, and again, there's multiple different parts of our brain, but the limbic system and our prefrontal cortex, right? Our limbic system is that fight, the flight, the freeze moment, that we start sweating, our heart rate increases. Well, guess what? That kept me alive, right, overseas. That limbic state kept me alive, but also that limbic state caused me to continue to drink because whatever life happened, whatever hurdle I faced, I approached it by drinking. I internalized it by drinking. I tried to make it go away or not think about it for 5-6 hours by drinking, and knowing that my body was searching for that dopamine rush, knowing that there are other ways to get that dopamine. Right? And then knowing that the prefrontal cortex is our reasoning, our executive part of our brain. How can I put myself in controlled environments, situations where I can, work on engaging my prefrontal cortex, right? Work on creating habits, healthy habits, so I can face life in a healthier way.
Hell yeah.
Right? So that coupled with the community aspect of what Treehouse provided was massive for me.
Yeah.
So I come home, I start the medical retirement process, and then I insert into the Treehouse Recovery IOP program here in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. 3 days a week for 3 hours, less invasive, right? But very strong community, very strong program, and that just continued to elevate my healing, continued to elevate my understanding. And after graduating from that IOP program, I had the the opportunity to work for Treehouse Recovery and pay it back, and let everyone know that there's resources out there that work.
That's so cool.
Right? And there's approaches out there to addiction that works. And we talked about this earlier, but my definition of addiction is, and it may not be different, but if you hear addiction, you instantly think of alcohol and drugs.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And there's so many other addictions out there. You know, porn is a big one, gambling, social media, body image, you know, overeating, overindulging. All these are forms of addiction. Even working out can be a unhealthy form of addiction. Now, if I'm sitting here and I'm refinancing my house, I decide to start selling all my, my car, everything, so I can buy the next supplement or the next energy drink, so I can go into the gym and work out for 4 or 5 hours. Well, guess what? That's an unhealthy addiction.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Anything that you do that contributes in a negative way to family, your loved ones, your health, financial, is an unhealthy addiction.
Yes.
Right. So that's how I approach addiction. And the steps that I used that's enabled me to continue to thrive in my life, can be applied to so many different struggles that people are going through. So that's where I want to break that stigma and say, hey, listen, there's other forms, there's other unhealthy habits, unhealthy thoughts. Right? If I get too angry, that is an addiction. Let's work on ways to regulate that.
Yeah.
Work on ways to talk through that. Let's be vulnerable. Let's create a community. Get a friend group where you can talk to people.
Where does that stem from?
Exactly.
Because a lot of times, like I've got kind of came to like recently with therapy, like where my anger, like my temper stems from. Like, why do I get so mad at people? And then you confront that and then you work on it that way too.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. It's all about just being proactive, trying to understand the why of these different actions that you have.
Why
right?
is huge.
But when you go to addiction, people often want to justify it because like you said, it has to be alcohol or crack, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the problem with that is like, yeah, of course there are addictive substances, but then you get people that are like, well, I smoke weed. I smoke it every day, but I'm not addicted to it. It's not addictive. And it's like, no, you have to do it every day to like manage all these other things. Like, yeah, you're addicted to it, and you're not of sober mind either. So yeah, that's a problem.
And is it affecting your financial, your relationships, right? Is it affecting those?
Yeah.
And if it is, then you need to look at yourself and say, why am I doing this, right? It's all about the why. And once we can identify that why, that's when you can go to work.
Yeah.
That's when you can work on yourself. And I could never have done this, right? The 18 months that I had clean before I relapsed, I tried to do it by myself as well, right? So I took out alcohol, thought everything was going to be great. That wasn't, right? And then I was like, oh, I'm doing this all by myself. Like I didn't have that support network, that community where I could reach out and say, hey, listen, man, I got a flat tire today. I'm struggling, right? Or things for some reason I can't get out of my head. And once we start vocalizing that and communicating that to others, man, we take that pressure off. That we destigmatize, we decrease how important that is. Because once we hear ourselves talk about it, we oftentimes find the solution for it.
Without a doubt, man. Do you have one thing I resonate with deeply, given you're talking about this and how to you figure out the why, but how to cope with things, like gratitude.
Yeah.
I find gratitude to be one of the most important things in all of life.
Difficult to do. Yeah.
But I was talking with Rick about this 30-day gratitude thing he did. And I'm big on writing down things you're grateful for. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, they do it because they're just writing down things they already know they're grateful for. Yeah. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my daughter. I'm grateful for breathing air. But then you get to a point to where you really have to think about it. And I think this is a good practice for anybody. It's like, okay, well, I'm thankful for that lady that hit me on my motorcycle. Yeah. I'm thankful for this thing happened to me in my childhood because now I understand this connection from it, right? And then really forcing yourself to dig deep and find gratitude in pretty much anything.
Yes.
Because you can find the beauty in whatever that was.
And we're such a we focus on these monumental victories.
Yeah.
Right. Everything has to be, like fireworks are off, like things are going, everyone's like cheering for you and everyone's so proud of you. And those will happen, but we can't not see the things that we're doing now. Right.
Yeah.
Like I say this, like if you get out of bed in the morning and that's the only thing you can do that day because you're in such a dark place, that is a victory.
Yeah.
You have a victory that you can latch on to. Let's work on that, right? We want to get, have more victories, but we need to start establishing those smaller victories. It's just like that mountain, right? Like I needed to sit back when I was on the top of the mountain and on my journey up to that mountain, understand that each day that I was doing the right thing, I was bettering myself. That is a victory, and I should be proud of myself for doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and it translates to personal training big time too, because it is a very intimate thing. I had a guy I work with. He mentioned me. He's like, "Yeah, I only lost like 5 pounds," and I was like, "Okay." I was like, and you talk about the big victories.
Yeah.
Like people have these expectations, like I want to be there. So unless they hit that step like pretty quick or like that happens, they're disappointed. It's like, okay, you lost 5 pounds though. Have you been training every day? Yeah, you hit all your sessions. Dude, it doesn't matter if you lost a single pound. The fact of the matter is that you held yourself accountable and you had the discipline to go in there and get it done. And what can we improve? We can still improve things, and it's all about leveling it up. But you crushed it, man. Like you've done something that you haven't done. So focus on that. That's a win in itself. And let's just keep making progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if your goal is to lose 10 pounds and you lose 1 a month, right? Great. You're still on your way to that, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have days that you may have gained a pound and lost 2, right? There's going to be, back and forth. And it's that consistency, that continuing to identify that, hey, that's my overall end goal. That's my end state, my future state. What do I have to do to reach that? And then identifying those successes along the way.
All right, dude. Great conversation so far. Oh, I'm having a blast, man. It's been really good getting to know you and chat with you about everything. I mean, I see a relationship blossoming. Not like that kind of relationship, like a friendship.
I know what
Come on, calm down.
I know what you meant.
No, but yeah. So, talk about some of the things that you're doing now. I do want to know your thoughts on this, just because you talk about the different kinds of therapy, and I thought it was interesting. You highlighted the help that you got from while you were in the military, but how there was nothing really proactive towards actually helping you. It just made you quit, which forced a lot more stuff. But and I don't know if any of these organizations discuss this, but I'm like big on like psychedelic therapy.
Yeah.
In a way, I've done ayahuasca. I did that not long after that last relationship. But one of the most powerful things I did was like 4 days after, like we called that wedding off. I went to the woods in Gatlinburg, got a cabin, and I was like out in the middle of nowhere, and it was close to Gatlinburg, but I just took like a really heavy dose of mushrooms.
Yeah.
And I faced everything in my life. I was there for like 9 hours, just like I was laying on the ground crying, like just sprawled out by a fire, like just working through some stuff, and I was like, dude, I'm at rock bottom. I want to feel it all. I want to face it all. And that was like, I know that's a little extreme. I'm not suggesting people go do that.
Yeah.
But for me, I saw it to be an extremely powerful tool because it forced me inward. And like, I think that's a place where a lot of people struggle as far as fixing their problems is going inward because you don't want to face those things, but you bury so much down and then you go through something like that and it forces you to face everything and you have no choice. You got to ride it out.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't like fix everything then, but then I was able to confront all the things that I had been through or maybe shoved away. And I thought that was really powerful in itself.
Yeah. You brought it to the surface.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I mean, that I've got experience there and I do a trip every once in a while. I'll go out to the woods. I've got one in a couple of months. Got a place I'll go for a night and just do my thing and just work inward.
Yeah.
And that, I think it's just a powerful tool, but
yeah, it's like you just said, right? It's a tool. Psychedelics is a tool that has worked for a lot of individuals, especially with PTS. It's it's a tool, right? But if that sparks another addiction, if that sparks something that you're like, oh, I like this, I want to continue to do this, then that's an unhealthy habit, right? That turns a tool into a habit.
Yeah.
I think that those types of holistic approaches to recovery, to mental well-being, should be looked at, right? You should definitely do your research and see in a controlled environment. Now, maybe not going into the woods by yourself and eating a bunch, but going into a controlled environment, yeah, absolutely look into that.
Yeah.
Now, if your thing is substances and you are struggling with that, I would urge you to maybe look at that tool, 1, 2, 3 years after, you've tackled the substance, right?
Yeah.
Because what we don't want to do is trade one addiction for the other.
Of course.
However, utilize the things that are out there to better cope with life, right? We bury everything down. If that is a way for you to release that and tackle that and face that, confront it,
Yeah.
then absolutely. But yeah, that would be my suggestion. And I've not done it yet. And I've not really put too much thought into it. I enjoy where I'm at now.
Yeah, for sure.
But there are so many new things in the holistic and domain that are out there. It's your responsibility to do that research, to look into it, to see the pros and cons of each of these different modality or treatment options, and look into it and say, hey, would this benefit me?
Yeah.
Right.
But don't let it become habitual. Like for me, it's like, now it's like just a 1 year, once a year growth thing for myself, and just to disconnect and go inward, but also like every once in a while for ritual and stuff, just because the spiritual connection through that.
Absolutely.
But it's strictly a tool. When people are talking about, I was at this big gathering, and I was freaking out. And I'm like, it's not a party drug. I don't think it ever was in history. You look back in time, they weren't doing it just to go to a rave. They were like, probably it's more of a spiritual practice, right? So I don't know. I think I'm definitely a proponent of those kinds of practices, just because I think, why not utilize different tools, especially things that are that old, to like grow, but also, don't come hooked on it, which I don't know who'd want to be tripping all the time.
Oh, man.
I like being in a sober mind, man.
Yeah. There's so much power. There's so much, you're capable of so much more in a sober mind. And
you have control.
Yes. The control is huge, right? You have control over yourself.
Yeah.
Right? We can't control anybody else, what they say, what they do, but we have control over ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think in recovery, there's not one size shoe fits all.
Yeah.
Right. So you know yourself best, but also you need to also allow recommendations or people to take the wheel sometimes.
Yeah.
If you're deep into the addiction and you need that, a lot of people say, well, I can't do this. I can't go away for 3 months. Well, in the grand scheme of things, 3 months is nothing compared to our lives, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing to the life that you'll have once you escape from the grasp that addiction has over you. Right?
Yeah.
And you're that feeling of being in control, being in a sober mind, being able to see the world differently through a different optic is very, very powerful. And once you see that, man, like that's just like, it's a light bulb over your head. It's like, this is new. This is what I'm going to do now.
100. Yeah, for
it's
sure.
great. And a lot of, people who, are laying on the couch and can't get up and throwing up and feeling like death, but they get up, they go scrounge some money together and they go get their next fix, right? Look at that motivation. Look at that drive that person had from feeling like death on the couch to now he's seeking something that he needs, right? There's that determination. That doesn't go away when you just replace that with a healthy habit, right? You have it. You have the potential. You have the ability to do that. So once you harness that and know that you have the motivation, drive to do something great, but just delete the unhealthy habit, man, it's like grasping someone and saying, hey, you can do this, and they actually understand that, man, it's powerful, and where they can go after that is limitless.
Yeah. And it also stresses the point of like, but also be the example.
Yeah.
Lead by example. I think I used to at one point, after my wreck, or I'd get frustrated with people like, man, there's so much potential. Like, why don't they just do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, there's a saying someone said to me a while ago, it's be a lighthouse, not a tugboat. The tugboat's going to get worn out, man. Mm-hmm. And you're just going to you're just going to keep pulling and pulling. Dude, our only job is just to be the lighthouse over there. Yeah. We're showing you the way. Come here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll go from there. But I think I was so focused on being like a tugboat, like, come on, I got you. And then like, that's wearing me out. My engine's just like going crazy.
And it's hard, right? It's difficult to change that healthy or unhealthy habit. Like your brain is so powerful, and it's difficult. And I'm never going to not say it's not, but it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's so much worth it. And the lifestyle, the life on the other side is so much better than what, I was living or whatever that individual who's struggling is living.
Yeah, man, dude. And you've had, and I know some of this stuff is, like you said, last year.
Yeah.
Also recent, but it's really cool hearing your story and looking at you. You look a lot younger than 40. I don't know. So
thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I like that.
You've aged well, man. But no, it's hard to imagine you did 16 years as a Green Beret and here you are. And like, so there's a lot of things that have been recent occurrences but the shift you've made and the purpose and the intention you're putting towards that is pretty awesome, man. So I'm proud of you, dude.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lighthouse, right? I like that analogy. It's you can drive yourself to the bottom if you want to help every single person.
Yeah.
But there's a solution, right? And that solution is over here. If you want that solution, then let's go.
Yeah.
Right? But it takes that person's effort, that first step, because I can do everything underneath the sun for someone who's willing to do something, and willing to make that change.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I do want to say, before we dive into what you're doing with these different organizations, another thing to stress too, I think about a lot of people don't really take into account is like be willing to cut ties, because we get into these habits. And for example, you got somebody that goes to an addiction facility, right, to get straightened out. They come home. Well, they got the people there that are like, hey, let's do this, let's do that. Yeah. And then they end up back in that facility. Or you get the guy that goes, he comes back, and he's got people that are just loving and supportive. But being willing to cut ties with people that enable the worst out of you. I mean, and I think that's a hard thing for people to face. For some reason, it's so hard to cut people out. But if people are going to cause, maybe they're not drama, or maybe they're not, maybe they don't drive you crazy, but if they're enabling these negative habits, they're no better than that. And they're just going to put you, you don't want to be that person. So
there's something that, I forget where I heard this, but not everyone is meant to be in your life forever. Right. And, there's seasons for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And there's seasons of our lives that, if that's the core group or the community that you had, great. It's past tense. Now is what you will have, what you're seeking. And Nashville's huge in the mental health sober community. It's out there, right? They're not going to come find you though. You're going to have to put in the work and go find them.
Yeah.
And they'll welcome you with open arms, but you're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to do that first step.
Yeah. It takes that intention, takes that effort too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we got the intentions of wanting to help everybody. Truth be told, we can't help everyone.
Correct.
But there's someone out there listening, or someone that's going to hear your story or gain something from that in order to be proactive. And that's all we need, man.
Yeah. There's two people in the world, right? There's one person, the type of people that are struggling with addiction or in recovery, right? And then there's the other person that, they may not have that addictive personality or addicted mindset.
Yeah.
But the third, which encapsulates everyone, is you either know a loved one, a friend, coworker, a teammate that is in active addiction or is affected by it.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever is being said today and continues on your podcast, you can relate and you can find ways to help other people.
What would you say on the compassion aspect? Because I often hear or overhear people, or have in the past, like, oh, that person's just a freaking addict. They're no good. You hear that stuff, and it's disheartening, because like something led them there though. They're facing something deeper, and once you fall into that spiral, it's hard to get out, man. It hooks you. It's a darkness.
Yeah.
And so what would you say on that aspect of like, maybe to people that look at addicts that way, you know?
Like I said earlier, it is a tool. It's an effective tool to isolate, to release, or to compartmentalize your trauma and your struggles, right? It's an effective, unhealthy tool, but it's effective. Once you understand the addictive mindset of nothing is more important than X, right? And that X is an unhealthy behavior, whatever addiction that you may have. Nothing is more important than that. And you understand, and you really dive down into what is being released. What is my brain telling that, or what is their brain telling that person to do?
Yeah.
That's when the compassion comes. That knowledge and understanding of addiction will then create that compassion.
Of course.
Right? Understanding people. And they're in a tough place, and it's hard to break. It is difficult. Like, I'm not saying it's easy. I've struggled with it, and there's days that I struggle more, and there's days that I struggle less. But I have coping mechanisms and tools in place.
Yeah.
And I've seen this lifestyle, I've seen this light, and I've seen and lived that other darkness.
Yeah.
And I choose light over darkness any day.
100%, dude. And some people may not recognize, they may look at someone, or if you're judging them with a lack of compassion, and your life's just perfect and great. Hey, a year ago, that addict's life could have been a reflection of yours too.
Yes.
A lot of times, like I said, some major shift happened. So it's like, you just got to put yourself in people's shoes.
Yeah. And we all have that feelings, right? We all have that critical mindset. We all have that, that self-esteem issues in some way, right? We've experienced it in our lifetime. So not having that compassion and looking at that individual, and that's one good things, and one things I love about Treehouse Recovery is if you are expressing interest of getting better, man, we'll break down any single barrier that we can, right? But you have to make that. If you come to me and say, I don't know if I want to get better, I'll work with you and I'll try to get you help. But if you come to me and say, I have to do this, I have to get better, there's no other way out, I need to stop this, man, like, get in my car, let's go. We're doing something. We're going to make an impact, and we're going to change your life. But it starts with that person.
Hell yeah, man. I love it, dude. I'm actually writing down Treehouse because I've heard them several times, but I just want to look into them more, man, because I love that approach on it. And I think it's really cool what they're doing.
So they tackle addiction through physical fitness, knowledge, and community. Those are the three big things. Me being a client and looking at, a traditional facility and then Treehouse, those are the three things. You get moving. Our body is meant to be moving, right? Yeah. We release dopamine that we were in, search of when we were in an addictive mindset. We get that through working out. Community is just extremely powerful. So all those, and then the knowledge aspect. I've hit on it multiple times, but man, just understanding what is really going on in our brains to make us make these poor decisions or engage in these unhealthy habits, like that knowledge is that's when that light bulb hit me. Once I started learning about what was really going on in my brain during that, because there's mornings when I'm like, man, I don't want to drink ever again. Well, guess what? 5 o'clock comes around, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Right? So like knowing why I made those decisions really helped me to combat those.
It's like we were talking about at that event, you were curious about like how to gain more knowledge in a way. Yeah. And, talking about it, man, just more conversations like this.
Exactly.
And with people going through things, man. I think that's experience, and that's the most powerful knowledge you can gain just by interaction on a deeper level with people. I mean, you'll gain so much from that. Like I said, with this podcast, all these episodes, man, I'm like, holy shit. And every one of them has re-geared my mind in some way for the better. Yeah. But I've been forced to reflect on all the conversations, and that's, and you're doing that, and you're just going to have more ahead of you, and you're just going to grow more in that space. I'm stoked to see what happens. That said, tell us about, some of these organizations you're involved with, and which.
So one of the organizations called Precision Components. I work alongside or for Nick Lavery. Nick Lavery is a massive individual, but powerful. So he's the first above the knee amputee to return back to becoming a Green Beret. He actually went to combat dive school. He accomplished massive amounts of things after his catastrophic event that happened when he was deployed. So he created, it's called The Forge. It's a virtual community. And this Forge has all these subject matter experts, from fitness to, life coaches to financial coaches to health and wellness to innovative pharmacists to mental health and recovery. And I'm the subject matter expert for mental health and recovery. And I approach it just like I said, like unhealthy behaviors. Whatever unhealthy behavior you have, let's tackle that, let's learn, let's get that knowledge, and let's create a different way to approach life. That has spawned numerous podcasts, obviously coming here. Also spawned some speaking engagements as well, is where I get a chance to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like in front of a crowd, I can be vulnerable. I can let them know about my story. But most importantly, what I leave is, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Right. The so what factor is the most important thing, because everyone has their own story. Every story can be impactful and can leave an impression on you. But the fact of what they're doing now and moving forward, that's the tools that you gain. That's that knowledge that you gain to make some alterations to your life.
100%.
So I got a speaking engagement up in Delaware early October. Then I'm doing a 15-mile ruck for an event up in New York with NYPD. So that's going to be, I'm actually rucking quite a bit now just so I can not die on the 15
You
miles.
ready to roll?
Yeah. So that was good. Like I enjoy being a member of Nick's team. Nick is a phenomenal leader. He's the type of leader that knows that if his crew, his team is successful, then that makes him successful. Yeah. Right. And that type of leadership, just breeds that motivation, that encouragement, that confidence. So I enjoy doing that. I love doing that. We're going to continue to build the Forge, but also Precision Components is continuing to grow and grow. So that started about 4 or 5 months ago. And then that spawned a couple individuals asking me to do some one-on-one sessions with them.
That's awesome.
So that created Resilience Recon. And that is me sitting down with someone.
That's your business.
Yeah, that's my business. Yeah. So, I go back and forth with my, motivational coach, executive coach, professional coach, all these different words before coach, right? But I look at it as, man, we're just going to sit down and we're going to solve some problems, right? And I looked back and did a reflection on my life. I struggled with my personal life. My professional life was stellar. Like on paper, you're like, holy shit! Like look at all these things Ben's doing. But my personal life was in shambles. Yeah. So I knew that there's, a multitude of high achievers, whether or not in Nashville, across the country, and high achievers to me means like you have that ability. Anybody has an ability to become a high achiever. Yeah. It's whatever your goal is, right? If your goal is to make that NFL practice squad team, right? That's a goal. If your goal is to get to a sales management position, if your goal is to go from janitor to, in the C-suite, that's a goal, right? Yeah. But your professional goals are set, ironed out, written down, everything. But your personal side, your mental health, your mental, flexibility, agility, strength is struggling. That's where I come into play.
For sure.
Sit down, we'll talk, we'll work through things, we'll identify these small victories, we'll work to get to your goal. But I need you to put in that effort. I'm just here to bounce things off, look at it as an objective, strategic optic, because I've had that experience. I've had, at the embassy, my job was a very strategic role. So I was able to look at the macro. So incorporating the macro, optic to someone's micro emotionally attached goals oftentimes allows them to identify different tactics, different solutions to accomplish them.
That's sick, man. Yeah. Dude, I love what you're doing. And when did you start this project?
Oh, that was like, I'd say 2.5 months ago.
Damn, brand new.
Brand new. And I love Nashville. Nashville's amazing. I was fortunate enough to be on Nashville Fit podcast. Yeah. And here in Nashville, like there's so much power and I know the virtual community is great, right? And being on a Zoom call or Google Meets is great and stuff can get done.
Yeah.
But if you're here in Nashville, like let's go get a small little suite. Let's get a whiteboard and man, we'll hash it out. We'll get things and we'll leave that knowing where we want to go.
Yeah.
And the steps to get there.
I love it, man. I love it, dude. And so that being said, you offer a lot of value. So how do people contact you? I want people to be able to find you. Yeah.
So on my Instagram is ben.monette. Same with LinkedIn, same with Facebook. That's the best way. You can go to resiliencerecon.com. You can contact me through there as well. And I have different packages, focusing on stress management. How did I fail handling my stress, right?
Yeah.
And I use all my experiences and all my failures to now sit down with that person and be like, okay, I've not been exactly where you are, but I've been around where you are.
Yeah.
And here's what I did.
Oh yeah.
And if you tell me like, nope, that ain't going to work. Like, okay, here's next. Here's A, B, C, D, right? Here's the things. A lot of personal focus, right? We're going to hone in your mental, like, what do you do when you're alone? What do you think about? How do you correlate your personal life into your professional? Because it has so much bleed over.
Yeah, it does.
It has so much. Like I know, when I was deployed, and I know buddies who are going through, divorces or going through a toxic relationship, man, their ability to perform was hindered, right? It was diminished. So how do we do that? How do we able to compartmentalize in a healthy way?
Yeah.
How can we set that apart and continue? Or what do we need to do? It takes two people to ruin any relationship, right? So what am I doing? How can I better myself? And if you're not, and you just want to get to a certain level, man, I've been there. I've fallen off those mountains. I've gotten back up and I've climbed a different mountain. So let me walk with you, right, to get to your goal and learn from my mistakes, right?
Man, I love it.
Yeah.
Dude, I hope some people start hitting you up from this because
I love it.
Yeah, dude,
Great.
Your heart's in the right place. You got the experience, and I can see your the compassion in you to want to actually walk with people through the thing, not just get them through a program or get them to like sign up, but you actually want to help people come out on the other side and be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah,
and you're willing to go every step along the way. Yeah, exactly.
Right? I can tell them, well, you should do this. Well, I'm not going to do that. Well, you should. And then that's it, right? But like, no, okay, you're not going to do that. You can't do that. There's other options.
Hell yeah,
right?
man.
And when you're so emotionally invested in your life, as you should be, it's hard to look outside the box.
Hell yeah.
And that's when you need other people to help you look outside.
Good shit, dude.
Yeah.
All right, my man.
Let's do it.
Got anything else for us?
No, I think that's it.
Well,
Good.
then, what I got to ask you then,
Yeah.
in both your personal life and your professional life, what is your relentless pursuit?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't know. You could have told me this earlier, so I didn't think about it.
I get everybody with this one.
A relentless pursuit. So let's look at it. We'll break it down, right? Because I like to analyze everything. So relentless pursuit is to help, right? But when I say help, there's no one thing. I look at it as mental health under an umbrella term. Right? Yeah. There's so many different components, different options, different resources out there to help. So my relentless pursuit is to continue to help other people not do the same things that I did, not do the same mistakes that I did. If I can help and I can provide this relentless approach to helping other individuals increase their mental ability, their mental performance, their agility, how they handle stress, and pursue that through helping other people through the Forge, Resilience Recon, here, on podcasts, with Treehouse Recovery. Those are the things that I'm pursuing.
Yeah.
To help other people know that there's a better way out there. There's a better life to have. There's ways that we can relieve this stress, this animosity, this being self-critical of yourself, but it takes effort, right? So that's my pursuit. That's my relentless pursuit. And I want others to match that, right? I want others to be like, I have that pursuit. That's what I want to do, right? How do I do that? Well, let's sit down and talk. If you need help, like just reach out. And again, I'll do anything I can in a relentless fashion to help.
I love it, man. And so that ties in. That's basically tying in both professional and personal. Then, you just want to make an impact.
I want to make an impact, and as I make an impact, I learn from others.
Yeah,
I learn ways to better myself. I get fulfillment by helping others. So all those are the personal aspects, the personal components. And I know that I can put my head on the pillow at night, knowing that I've done everything I can to help people that want to be helped.
Dude, you couldn't have said it any better, man.
Yeah.
I love it. That's perfect.
Awesome.
See, it wasn't even that crazy.
It wasn't,
man.
See,
it just came so naturally to you. Well, Ben, I think that concludes this episode.
Nice.
But, man, this has been an awesome discussion,
amazing.
dude. Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been really cool getting to know you and, hear your story and you be vulnerable and just share it.
Yeah.
And, to see where you're going with everything, man, I wish you all the success. And whatever I can do to help,
likewise.
I'm more than happy.
Collaborate and work towards, helping others. That's the main goal.
That's the deal, man.
It is.
I'm stoked. Well, hey, it was an honor having you, my friend.
Appreciate it.
Hell yeah, bro.
Yep.
All right. Till next time.
Nice. Shit.
Yeah, dude. Blessed.
It was.